So I saw a tweet made by the user Wholesome Old One that went somewhat viral saying that Spy Family made him, a grown man, actually want to become a parent. That tweet was the inspiration for this video. Yeah, I know I'm a little late, but whatever. Spy Family is an anime that may or may not be Japanese propaganda incentivizing the Japanese population to have kids. It's a story about a spy who's forced to take up the role of having a family so that he can conduct a mission. It's really a lighthearted show that I'd recommend. Buried within the lightheartedness are some really important messages about family. I'll be talking about that through the parents Lloyd and Yor. Their lives change as they become parents, and I think it's really cool and highlights a lot of values I think are important and sorely missing in society today, as over time we're putting less emphasis on children as a society. So here I am, a 22-year-old, recently graduated from college, childless man telling you about my insights on parenthood. Needless to say, I'm not married and I'm not speaking from experience. I'm only speaking as someone who grew up around kids. Usually that was my cousins and family friends. So take what you will from this video. Before we really get started with this video, I know people will ignore this, but I'll say it anyways. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that everyone has to become a parent and that there's no joy outside of parenthood. I'm just going over specific joys that I can see with parenthood. Now that we have that useless disclaimer out of the way, let's get started. Lloyd is a spy who adopts Anya and takes Yor as a wife as part of a mission. In the manga, we see that Lloyd has no name or identity. This explains why he's so easily able to keep no significant bond with anyone he meets or any new job he takes up. It's all just business as usual to him. Family life is hoisted onto him unexpectedly. He didn't want to start a family, but here he is, for better or worse. Anya doesn't have this mission-focused mindset. She frankly isn't even able to mentally conceptualize the gravity of the situation. All she's really focused on is the fact that she wants to grow up and be part of an actual family. To be a normal child, not rotting away in the foster care alone. So since Anya wants to be an actual child, it forces Lloyd to be an actual father. He's forced to play the role of a sentimental, caring father. And since such a role can't be fully manifested without in some sense being properly lived out, he finds it in him to be the loving, caring father that Anya wants. He's forced to make sacrifices in favor of the child's well-being, to not solely think selfishly about himself and his mission, but to care about the needs of other, more vulnerable people. That's what parenthood does for people. It gives them responsibility. Now you aren't just responsible for one person, but for another, developing person. And not just their physical well-being, but their psychological well-being. Lloyd doesn't just get a dog to keep Anya happy, he accommodates for her and gets a dog that she actually wants. Parenthood makes you selfless, it takes attention away from you and your desires all the time. Deeper meaning is found where responsibility is entrusted. This deeper purpose can elevate you to pursue and do things that you never thought you would have done before. Things that you didn't even know that you were capable of. This is similar to Yor passionately defending Anya from the crooks. Parents will swiftly and sacrificially give up their lives to defend their children from danger. Yor demonstrates the idea of the mama bear mother trope. The idea of a mother who's kind when you're on her good side, but shows a merciless vindictiveness if you threaten that which she cares about. In 2006, there was apparently a mother who rustled a polar bear to protect her children. I don't know how true this is, but it does show that this idea isn't unsubstantiated. In Spy Family, this is done for comedic effect, but it does get the point across. I'm aware of a similar story to Lloyd in my own life. I had a friend in high school and middle school. Let's call him Jack. Jack had a girlfriend. Let's call her Rachel. Rachel got pregnant with Jack a little bit after high school. Both of them had no intention of being parents and didn't feel prepared for the challenge, but they got married, kept the child, and now they cannot imagine their lives without the child. It brought wholesomeness and greater purpose to both of their lives. I'm sure they would have told you before this that they would rather spend money on Popeyes and Marvel movies than diapers and baby clothes. And now they can't imagine their lives not buying baby clothes and diapers. And they're happier for it. Parenthood can awaken the dormant higher self lurking within, waiting to be called upon. Some may object to this by pointing out studies that prove that childless people, or child-free people, are happier than those who choose to have children. But to me, this has always felt like asking someone if they're happy on the treadmill compared to asking someone if they're happy while eating donuts. If I were to ask one person who's running on the treadmill right at that moment if they're happy, they would tell me that they aren't. In fact, I'm sure they'd tell me that they're miserable. If I were to ask someone who's drinking soda, eating chips and binging the latest Netflix series right at that moment if they're happy, then of course they'll say they're happy. But we all know which activity is more beneficial in the end. Check back in a few years and see who's doing better assuming trends continue. The fruits of one's labor are difficult to grow, but once it has grown, it is more impactful than those who choose not to bear any fruit at all. Once the children have grown up, assuming they're properly functioning members of society, they will make the parents more satisfied than if they had never had them. And this is why when you often look at long-term studies, asking people down the line if they're happy, you'll usually see that people who have kids are more happy than people who don't have kids. When you are without children, your happiness cup, so to speak, may be full. You may be fully satisfied with your life and can't really see how it could improve. But with children, your happiness cup expands exponentially. You're capable of happiness unbeknownst to your former self. You may have been satisfied without a kid, but you didn't know the greater and deeper joys possible with a kid. In episode 6, Yor teaches Anya how to defend herself if bullies come her way. Even basic martial arts seem to put her ahead of her classmates. Anya uses this newfound power irresponsibly and punches Damien. Now, I have no children of my own, but I have worked with children quite a bit, and this is something similar to something that I've noticed myself. Children, for better or worse, will imitate everything their superiors do, especially their parents. And who can blame them? They've been conscious for like 4 years. They know like 10 things and 6 of them aren't even true. The superiors are their main point of reference, so of course they're gonna copy them. What's more is that Anya is a telepath who can read people's minds without them knowing. So she's made privy to not only everything that they say, but everything that they think. This lends itself to some nice comedic moments, but it does show Anya that the people around her truly have begun to have genuine love for her. Once Lloyd plays the part of a loving father for long enough, he actually begins to genuinely care about Anya's well-being. There was a TikTok I saw some time ago of a woman stating the same thing. It was one of those videos with women yelling in their cars. She was yelling about how the child mimics everything she does. When she swears under her breath, so does the child. When she goes half-effort on some tasks, so does the child.
I've just been yelling in my car for 30 minutes because fucking parenting is hard. It's hard. Because they're little mirrors. If I want my son to be a better person or to grow up and just be a good fucking human, I have to be a good person. He mimics everything I do. He mirrors everything. So if I have a fucking bad attitude, he's gonna have a goddamn bad attitude. If I say fuck, of course he's gonna say fuck. I have to change me to change him.
Admittedly, this is kind of funny, but it also reveals something substantially edifying about parenting, or in my case, dealing with kids in general. It forces you to become a more disciplined and virtuous person, as the child is a caricatured reflection of who you are. Parenting is the accumulation of all you are as a person. The values you hold and the skills you learn will be manifested through another person. It forces you to weed out all of those debilitating bad habits you have, to take the responsibility to make yourself a better person. It forces you to grow up and become the best that you can be. I said in a tweet a long time ago that I wouldn't consider myself an adult until I had children, and this is part of the reason why. No one really relies on me, so it makes me selfish, which is understandable and perhaps optimal in my situation, but the idea still holds. The joy of parenthood doesn't come automatically, and you have to learn to find joy through virtue. And of course, on the other hand, I can't go without mentioning the fact that if some people do have kids and they choose not to grow and stay selfish, the kids probably won't turn out super great and you won't find the joy I'm speaking of. With this specific example in Spy Family, it isn't as though Yor was really wrong in what she said to Anya, it was that Anya was interpreting it wrong. This highlights another facet of parenting and childhood in that children probably shouldn't be privy to all of the knowledge until they're a bit older and able to understand the implications of it, such that they can use that knowledge effectively. This is exaggerated again by the fact that Anya can read people's minds. There are countless times when Anya misinterprets what she hears from people's thoughts as well. Having a child is sort of like living life on a second playthrough. You get to experience the world again through the innocent, curious eyes of another human who is usually genetically similar to you. Think of a show or movie that you liked before. You've watched it a few times and maybe it's getting a little bit boring after the 7th time. Honestly, it's kind of embarrassing watching the show again. But now you have a child who's experiencing it for the first time, and it's sort of like you're experiencing it for the first time vicariously through them. That's what happened when I showed my family friend the Sonic OVA and Super Mario Bros. Z. I've watched both of those multiple times and it's kind of boring watching it again by myself. But watching it with him vicariously almost felt like I was watching it again for the first time. Luckily, I also brainwashed him into liking Sonic beforehand. Now, it's entirely possible that they don't like it, and they end up completely shattering your heart. I haven't gotten the kid to watch Digimon yet, and that's mostly because he gets too bored and he thinks it's weird, and it pains me every time. It just fills me with emptiness and despondence. Okay, the last part was mostly a joke, but it does highlight a criticism I received for this point. People often tell me that it's very likely that when you have children, they won't end up liking the same things that you like. There's a vast multiplicity of things that someone could be interested in, and due to mathematical probability, it's entirely possible, maybe even likely, that they won't end up liking the things that you like.
And I also think that there's a very high likelihood that I don't know if I'd like the kid. I feel like I can be picky about the people I want to hang out with, and like even though I'm related to people in my life currently, I don't hang out with them because we don't have similar interests. And so, like if the kid really liked, painting or something, and there's nothing wrong with that, I just probably wouldn't find that fascinating.
Yeah, it seems like the potential likelihood of the kid ending up something that skews away from what you generally had in mind is like what your dialed in focus is. It's so high that it's almost like the roll of the dice. Is it always worth it? I don't know.
But even if that does happen, I think it's still kind of cool. The world is changing so fast. The world that we inhabited is completely different than the world that our parents did when they were our age. So I think about parenting as if you are peering into the life that you may have potentially had if you were born at the same time that they were. My father and I have been told to be very similar temperamentally and idiosyncratically. Yet, here I am making videos and he didn't do that. And I'm sure he finds it cool. Some professional athletes have gone on record claiming that they would not allow their children to emulate them and become professional athletes. This forces them to take interest in something that they may not be interested in. Maybe their child will become unironically interested in painting when they aren't. In this case, in order to stay close to the child, they will either learn to take an interest in painting generally, or take an interest in the child's painting specifically. When you're a selfless parent, you learn to find the joys in many things that your children may do. What is interesting to them subsumes you and you become interested second-handedly. Now once again, this isn't me saying that you have to have children in order to be happy. I'm just saying that there's a joy in having children, and I think my generation is beginning to very much dismiss it. And I understand why you have objections. The divorce rate is through the roof. Chances are that your parents also got divorced. So perhaps you don't even have a good template of what a good family is supposed to look like. Perhaps you don't trust yourself to be a parent. Maybe you think the world is too cruel to bring a child into it. Those are all understandable. But in any case, I still think it's too hasty to give up parenting as a whole. At least not before engaging in serious contemplation and discernment. I think that broadly speaking, everyone is called to serve in some substantive way. Maybe you decide to be a missionary somewhere and do charity work for your life like Mother Teresa. And who am I to judge someone like that? I am saying, however, that a lot of people probably could benefit from having kids. And that's what I wanted to show today. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you all next time. Peace.